Hello everyone. Welcome to our animated philosophy series where we explore timeless concepts in a modern context. Today we're going to dive into the world of logical positivism, and in particular, we'll be focusing on one of its key figures, Rudolf Carnap. Carnap is famous for his ruthless attack on metaphysical statements. Perhaps you've heard some philosophical statements that sound profound but leave you wondering if they actually say anything. That's the essence of what Carnap was challenging. He argued that many of these so-called metaphysical claims aren't statements at all, not in any meaningful sense. They're pseudo-statements, or in other words, sentences that seem meaningful but, when carefully analyzed, don't really say anything at all. To explain how Carnap came to this conclusion, we need to look at one of his key works, The Elimination of Metaphysics Through Logical Analysis of Language. First, let's understand what Carnap means by pseudo-statements. He's targeting statements that, on the surface, look like they're talking about the world, making claims about reality, but when we analyze them closely, we realize they don't meet the test of meaning. And this test, as Carnap saw it, was the verification principle. According to the verification principle, for a statement to be meaningful, it has to be either empirically verifiable or analytically true. Now, empirical verification simply means that a statement can be checked or tested through observation or experience. For instance, if I say it's raining outside, that's a meaningful statement because we can verify it. You can look outside or check the weather report to confirm whether it's true. On the other hand, analytically true statements are things like logical or definitional truths. A triangle has 3 sides, or all squares have 4 equal sides. These are true by definition and don't require us to check the outside world. Metaphysical statements, however, don't meet either criterion. They aren't verifiable by experience, nor are they analytically true. A classic example Carnap might offer is something like, the absolute is infinite. On first glance, it seems like it's making a profound claim, but what does it actually mean? How would we verify that? We can't observe the absolute to see if it's infinite, because, well, what is the absolute? There's no empirical content here. It's not like looking at a tree or measuring water temperature. There's nothing to point to. And it's not analytically true either, in the way a circle has no corners is. So according to Carnap, this statement doesn't pass the verification test. It's a pseudo-statement. It looks like it says something, but when you break it down logically, it collapses. To help illustrate this, let's think about something from our everyday life that might feel deep, but doesn't really say much upon analysis. Have you ever heard someone say something like, everything happens for a reason? It sounds meaningful at first. It feels like a comforting, even profound, statement about life. But if you ask, what exactly is the reason for this event? How can we observe this reason suddenly? The statement begins to unravel. There's no clear way to verify it. The phrase ends up being more about emotion or attitude than something you can test or confirm. It's this kind of vague, untestable language that Carnap believed was at the heart of many metaphysical propositions. Let's go back to Carnap's essay. In The Elimination of Metaphysics, Carnap carefully picks apart metaphysical language. He shows how metaphysicians often misuse words or create confusion by treating abstract concepts as if they refer to something real in the world. Take, for example, the word being. When metaphysicians talk about being, they're often using it in a way that doesn't correspond to anything we can observe or verify. Carnap would argue that if you can't clarify the meaning of being in a way that can be verified or analyzed logically, then you're not really saying anything at all. You're just playing with words. This may sound harsh, but Carnap's aim was to clean up philosophy, to make it rigorous and precise. He believed that too much of philosophy was mired in vague, unverifiable talk that confused rather than clarified. In this sense, Carnap was part of a broader movement in early 20th century philosophy, known as the linguistic turn. Philosophers like him wanted to focus on the analysis of language itself, believing that many traditional philosophical problems, especially metaphysical ones, were really just problems of language. If we analyze our words and how we use them more carefully, we can avoid falling into the trap of pseudo-statements. Now, you might wonder, does this mean Carnap and the logical positivists were against all abstract thinking? Not exactly. They weren't opposed to abstract ideas as long as those ideas could be tied back to some form of verification. For instance, scientific concepts are often abstract, but they can be empirically tested. Even theoretical physics, which deals with things we can't always see directly, is still grounded in empirical evidence. What Carnap and his fellow logical positivists rejected were statements that had no connection to experience or logical analysis, especially in metaphysics. To summarize, Carnap's attack on metaphysical propositions wasn't about rejecting deep thinking. It was about making sure that our deep thinking is meaningful. He wanted philosophy to be as clear and rigorous as science, which meant eliminating statements that couldn't be backed up by empirical observation or logical proof. And this is where his real legacy lies, in pushing philosophy to adopt more precise, disciplined methods of analysis, and in challenging us to scrutinize whether our profound-sounding statements actually say anything at all. As we wrap up, I encourage you to think about some of the so-called deep statements you've heard in your life. How many of them can be tested, verified, or logically analyzed? Carnap's challenge to metaphysics is a reminder that sometimes what sounds meaningful might not hold up under scrutiny. It's up to us to ask the hard questions and make sure we're really saying something, and not just filling the air with empty words. Thank you for learning with us. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights into similar echoes.